Okay, today the SEC charged Goldman Sachs and one of its employees with fraud in connection with the sale of a synthetic collateralized debt obligation. In sum, the SEC alleges that Goldman permitted Paulson & Company, a hedge fund that was seeking to short the mortgage market, let Paulson select a portfolio of securities that it turned around and then sold to other investors without telling those investors that Paulson & Company was involved in the selection process of the portfolio. Thus, investors who thought they were obtaining a portfolio that was selected by an objective and independent third party were not told that, in fact, a hedge fund that had a particular interest in the securities performing poorly was actually involved in the selection of the portfolio. Questions?
How did it differ from typical transactions in the synthetic CDO market?
Well, in every synthetic CDO, there's always one party that is betting that mortgages will perform properly, and another party that's betting that the mortgages will decline in value. That's a general statement, but a truism. And there's nothing inherently improper about that. The problem here is that Goldman let Paulson, which had a view that the mortgage market would perform badly, let them actually select the securities that would be involved in the portfolio. In other words, involved in the selection of securities that they thought would perform poorly. The investors who were purchasing the notes issued by the CDO were not told that Paulson was involved in the process. They thought that they were getting a portfolio that was selected by a neutral and independent third party.
And to the investor, what would you tell the investor today? What message would you like to get across to them?
Well, I think the message to the investors is that, first and foremost, that the SEC and the Division of Enforcement is aggressively looking at all products, markets, and transactions arising out of the financial crisis, and we will look very closely at this and similar behavior. Investors need to make sure they know who they're dealing with. Even institutional investors are entitled to the protection of the federal securities laws. You need to know who you're dealing with and asking the right questions. And to dealers and banks and others, the rule is that you need to play fair. You need to provide the kind of proper and full disclosure that the securities laws require, or face the consequences.
But the investors in these synthetic CDOs were perfectly capable, if they chose to, of looking at what the underlying collateral was. They could see what it was. Wouldn't they have been in a position in terms of disclosure to at least have made a decision as to whether they wanted to participate?
In this case, as you see from our complaint, one of the investors specifically asked for an independent third-party objective collateral manager to assist in the selection of the portfolio. They were a foreign institution that wanted somebody here in the United States to be looking at this portfolio. So that was a condition of the deal for them. Goldman represented that that's what they would get, and that is in fact not what happened.
You said that in this case that investors weren't told that the short was involved in selecting the securities, but it's been reported that this has happened with the construction of other CDOs, that shorts were intimately involved in how they were constructed. Will the SEC look at other deals that were packaged by banks like Deutsche Bank or Merrill Lynch or Citigroup that may have been put together in a similar fashion?
Like I said, we have a structured product and new product enforcement unit in the SEC that's looking at these as well as other products, transactions, and practices across the markets arising out of the financial crisis, and we will look at deals with similar profiles or any deal where disclosures were not properly made.
So tell me the process here on out. How will this proceed? What's the next step?
Well, the case was assigned to a judge today, and the case will proceed.